Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the Wellness Gala free online series, Take Care of Yourself. I am Lee Grabarczyk, on soulfulmandalas.com. I'm an intuitive channel who creates sacred geometry to enhance awareness. So just kind of a moment here. I just want to really extend my gratitude to all the essential workers out there. I appreciate it, your service. And for those of you who, are having difficult times, just know you're not alone. This is a time of great reflection. And part of the reason that we're having this series is because of the fact that many of us are quarantined. We're in a situation where we're off of our normal patterns, which is inherently brings with it reflection, contemplation. I'm not doing the thing I normally do. What do I want to do? And this brings up all sorts of fun things connected to identity. And as was stated in the previous, some of the previous sessions here, that was one of the things that we covered. So we talked about the challenge of this and identity, coping mechanisms connected to this, how it is that they get engaged, the birthplace of them, right? Personality and its development. It's a way of handling challenges. In other words, we could see personality or identity as the way in which we meet the environmental, social, family challenges of life, adapting to them in a way that allows us to be able to survive. Or I would say reduce fear, enhance love. So these coping mechanisms that we talked about, they become kind of the garb that we're, well, not like this, but kind of the garb that we're wearing to weather the environment, right? This is how it is that we operate in the world to handle any potential problem that may occur. And these personalities have individual styles to them that are birthed in early childhood development, or even maybe a little bit further, that says this is who I am, and this is my identity in a way of being able to survive and also thrive in the world. This is my adaptation, basically, to my environment. So here I am. Now, connected to these is belief systems. So belief systems are it's a different kind of take. You could see a belief system as the lens, right? The belief system is the way in which I perceive the action. It's my expectation of the action. It's the way that I kind of view the world, really. So I see it through my identity or my personality, and then I also see it through this lens of belief. And these beliefs vary significantly, as does personality, as do some of the coping mechanisms. But belief systems can be seen in values. They can be seen in how it is what I put my faith in, right? What is it that I put my energy into? Those kinds of strategies, if you would, are created to minimize the shock to my psyche, to my system. So I have these belief systems, they're like a little buffer. So now I'm kind of in control, right? I have my belief, and this is how I perceive things, this is how I view the world. And they're very, very powerful. Now, I feel that a lot of these belief systems are unconscious. They're sort of subterranean. In other words, let's say that I have an event, a car accident. It's raining that day. The air quality is something. There's a song playing. There is a scent in the air. And I have a car accident. And then 20 years later, I'm driving, and all of those different ingredients happen to also occur. The scent, the sound, the feel. There's actually a gland, there's actually a neurological response that remembers things like that. and immediately causes a trigger. This is how people have anxiety attacks, I believe. They get completely stimulated by something that happened. But there becomes a belief that under those circumstances, I can't go out in that, it's raining, I can't go out in that because that's that car, I can't go out in that, and that forms a belief system. It's a strategy for living. And these belief systems, again, are largely unconscious. And they also influence, to a great degree, perception. Yeah. That they carry with them, like, so trauma. So let's say that I've had some kind of trauma in childhood. It affects the way that I see the world. For some people, even in adulthood, the world is a scary place. Difficult, right? Because the childhood belief systems that were put into place because of events caused this. Or I could see it as a joyful, great place. But the way that I get in touch with them is what really liberates me from them and creates more desirable outcomes. But this requires, and in this moment it seems appropriate, reflection. You know? And some of the ways in which we kind of like reveal ourselves about our belief system is, what do we say when there's an event where there's a problem? So let's say, for example, I drop something, right? I drop a vase, or I drop something and I create a mess. What do I say about myself? Oh, you idiot. Or you stupid person, or you mess. What do I say? That's part of my belief system. And my belief systems are then tethered to or creating my identity. In other words, the way in which my expectations of myself come into being. So let's say that I have trauma connected to a certain test. Maybe I had a teacher or a series of events where I didn't do well. And every time that I get to that anxiety, I have this belief system about, oh my goodness, something bad's going to happen here. Because in my past, connected to a class where I was studying, and then I was, and then maybe the teacher was embarrassing to me, or maybe it was incredibly some kind of awkward moment. Then maybe I develop a fear about that kind of test. So all of these different kinds of belief systems are basically shaping our decision making. I can do this, I can do that. They're coloring the lens in which we see things. And the way in which they color the lens which we see is just amazing to me. So for example, I go to a party. Let's say there's 8 or 10 people there. And let's say that there is something going on in the party. Maybe 2 people are fighting. Now, basically, some of the mechanics of the party will be remembered. But I would assert that most people will see that all differently, based on the way that their belief systems color it. Let's say it's 2 men fighting. People will align with the people that they believe to be right. Sides will be chosen. Decisions will be made. In group therapy, one of the things that I find very, very fascinating to talk to someone who's a psychologist, when they do group therapy and a new person comes into the room, immediately there are decisions made about who that person is. Immediately. And the entire group is already kind of conjured of something based on past experiences. And even the most open-minded, and even for me, even if I really feel like, oh, I'm so past that, I don't have any of those prejudices, still got them. And they're constantly influencing the way it is that I see things. And my challenge is to look at that, notice it, see it, not to condemn it, not to fight it, not to, punish myself over it, but to really notice, wow, that is how I'm perceiving that. Perception like this is incredibly powerful. Let's say that I'm reading something. I notice this if I do things where people are sharing a reading, like different people are reading something. People put words in there that don't exist. Why they do that? From their own perception. They'll change them, they'll edit them, they'll move them out. And if they're doing it with that reading, which is pretty straightforward, what are they doing in their lives? What am I doing in my life? What am I noticing? So what I notice is a reflection of my beliefs. Certain things, certain people, etc., stand out for me. based on a certain kind of attachment or point of view. Some other things I completely overlook. But the things that I notice and the things that are striking to me, that is a reflection and a window into my way of looking at the world. My own individual way of looking at it. And it shapes things. And it shapes the constructs. Because the belief system, being a part of identity, is always defending itself in some way, shape, or form, saying, no, 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 this is it. This is it. Because I know, because I was in a car accident, and it was raining, it was terrible, you can't go out there, it's horrible, there's music playing in, it's awful. So there's all of these different kinds of ingredients that go in, and even though that person is absolutely authentic in their feeling state about what's happened, it may not be appropriate at that moment for the person they're talking to. Yet they'll feel a compulsion to do it because they care for that person and they want that person to do well. So you can't fault people for it. This isn't a criticism. It's just created to help understand where people are coming from when it is that they are communicating their belief. This is particularly true in spirituality. Or even in politics, right? I come up with a spiritual system, right? Influenced by childhood events, influenced by society, right? The family that I was born into. And I'm saying, this is what spirit is. And I'm very defensive about it. And my defensiveness, I would assert, is actually proportionate to my own insecurity about it. Why am I doing that? Because I don't want to be alone, and I feel that my system, my belief, to be validated, if that's where I'm coming from, needs the approval of other people. So I push that idea of spirit on them. And then if they don't like it, I could be resentful. Or in some cases, with some things, we actually have warfare over things like this. Political concepts, different points of view. Because the belief systems themselves have such an intrinsic survival mechanism, such an incredible part of, I need to do this to live, that the stakes of the game are very high. And then when someone criticizes the belief system, the person goes into a complete, tizzy over it because it's actually undermining their most core part of what it is that they value and identify with. And it would raise the question of, have they really thought this through? It's a very, very, very threatening thing for some people. Mark Twain had a wonderful quote when it comes to just forgetting religion for a second, just in general. It's easy to fool someone. It's almost impossible to tell them that they've been fooled. And that is exactly it. We are then looking at the defense mechanism, some of the defensiveness that we talked about, in a way that then causes them to ratchet up. And so when I feel defensive about something, then I need to look at what is going on in my brain that I feel so attached to this thing, whatever it may be, that I feel the need to kind of react in a defensive way that then pushes in possibly an aggressive style, what it is that I feel. Like, you need to get this. No. And one of the things that is true of all beings, everyone's individual. And belief systems are completely individual. One of the other ones, some of the belief systems that just blow my mind are, I knew a guy in a gym, and he told me, everybody in my family gets hit by a car. And I was thinking, okay, well, cars hit one another, that's fine. Oh, no. This is physically like a person walking, like a pedestrian getting hit by a car. And he cited 12 examples of family members that had all been hit by cars. And for him, this was real. No joke. This wasn't funny. This wasn't some weird coincidence. This wasn't something that seemed odd to him. He was very defensive about it. He was like, no, this is what happens. We all get hit by a car. I said, do people live? I mean, most of them did, but there were some who didn't. So belief systems really, really do influence the trajectory and the way it is that we move through our lives. You know, and even though we have like horoscopes, so I remember years and years ago, I had a friend, and he said to me, astrology is all a bunch of bunk. Never works for me. And I said, because you don't believe it. You don't believe it. How could it? The lens from which you see it does not recognize its validity, and as such, no, doesn't exist. And that is really like a tell about everything we do. Everything that we perceive, everything that we value, everything that we're attached to is a reflection of self. And what we can do in that is really look at ourselves from our own personal prejudices and our own pet peeves, right? So culturally, there are attachments and there's perceptions about certain cultures and how it is that they run and what it is that they do. I don't like this culture, it does this. I don't like that culture, it does that, blah, 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 blah. But how much is my thinking really projecting a viewpoint on that culture? White, brown, black, whatever. Or maybe socioeconomic. What is it about my belief system that is coloring the way in which I see things? And am I really owning up to my own thoughts about this? Or am I just continuing to see the evidence to support my point of view? Am I really willing to step back and look at my own thinking in a way that is becoming self-examining and critical about my own thought? Or am I constantly just reinforcing my point of view on other people in such a way that undermines their own individuality? And this is really can be very dangerous. Another example. I spoke to a man who was the dean of a very, very, very expensive, high-end prep school. Like one of the best here on the East Coast. I don't know, like tons, scads of money. And I asked him, I said, well, you know, he's talking about the percentage of people that went on to Ivy League schools and their successes and all this stuff. And I went, well, what creates this? You know, what is your point of view about why is it that these children are so successful? He said, it's because it's expected of them. They're expected to succeed. They're not smarter. They're not more capable. They may have more connections. They may have more financial background. It's expected. People are influenced, particularly younger people, by our expectations. And our expectations are an extension of our belief system. So when I'm seeing some group or whatever, and it's got a different point of view, great. Never thought of it that way before. That's a different angle. That's a different approach. There's a diversity in everything in nature, right? All culture, all groups have this in everything from plants, animals, there's this diversity. Why? So we can handle unique problems. If we all thought exactly the same way, wouldn't that be boring? I mean, what would be the point? How would we learn? How would we discover anything new? We would just keep getting what we got. And maybe for some people, that's very satisfying. God bless them. That's not just that for me, that would be dull. I mean, I really love to hear somebody else's point of view on things. How is it you perceive yourself? How is it that you perceive, I don't know, God? How do you perceive religion? How do you perceive this? What is it? Whatever. Those ideas and those conversations are really, really powerful. And with all of the things that have happened recently, with so much being turned on its ear and everybody kind of reinventing things, right? Even with the New York governor, he said something about, this isn't just that we start again. This isn't just the beginning. This is a time to reimagine. So why not? Why not have this be a time to reimagine? And what are the kinds of things that we can reimagine that maybe we never thought of? We never put the time or energy to just question them, just to think about them. For example, why can't different people's point of views coexist? Why is that? Why can't we have conversations about different perspectives without killing each other? Right? Why can't groups cooperate more? One of the things that has really kind of come up for me, particularly with this quarantining thing, is, the defensiveness of the ego. In other words, the ego is really, that's great, someone just shared this, the ego is really the embodiment of I would call it in this context, because it's kind of impossible to escape and there is some upside to it, but it's really an unrelenting, unyielding, inflexible point of view. It's like, this is it, this is what I do, blah, 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 blah. That's it. So one of the things that I've come across recently is this idea of prosperity, right? So we have all of this tightness of money. We have all of these issues connected to, even like with food service, et cetera, because of what's going on these days. But one of the ways in which we keep from moving forward, my opinion, is that prosperity is seen from the perspective, through the lens, right, of scarcity. If I succeed, somebody else needs to fail. If someone else succeeds, I need to fail. That's scarce. That's the kind of scarcity role. There's only a fixed amount of this thing. We all have to compete with one another, fight, warfare, protest, etc., because that's all we got and that's what we're going to do. And yeah. Well, why do we have to do it that way? Why isn't there a way of having it be abundant? Why can't we all succeed? Why not? And then we have different kinds of roles in society, And this is going to sound maybe controversial, but why is it when a man enters a room, right? Maybe you've got men and women in a room, and they're equal in authority. Why is the deference to the man? Why isn't it shared with the man and the woman? Or better yet, why not just go to the person who can handle the problem the best? Why is it that we compete with one another so often? If I were like an evil genius, let's say, and some people believe that the reptilian order, etc., have been doing this. This is all kind of like in the thought of who it is that's controlling, controlling us. What if I were to create a system of oppression? If I wanted to make sure that people didn't get into their power, I would say to them, this is all that's available to you. You now all have to compete with it. You do not get to cooperate. You cooperate in a limited way, but we will tell you. Why does it have to be like that? And I'm not talking about socialism here. I'm just talking about cooperation. Why not? Why do we have these attachments? Why, we've been doing it forever. Does that mean that we have to keep doing it? Gender roles, for example, all of these prejudices about different groups, different faiths. Everybody has the right to practice however they want to. Why should that be a concern of mine? Who has the time? But imagine if we respected people that way. if we viewed them with a sense of empathy and connectedness, where we actually recognized or took the time to put ourselves in their shoes and think, I wonder how I would feel in that circumstance before we spoke. What if we actually had conversations with the people about where they're coming from and actually had them be a part of the greater collective communication? And we did this on a regular basis. We have 6 major media outlets controlling our media. Basically 6. That's it. Right? Determining, choosing. That's it. 6. And they all have their own thing going on, and fine. But why is it that our voices, why is it that our own individual perspective, our own point of view are inviolate? Soul, for God's sakes. Why is it that why does that need to be validated by this other stuff? Because the belief systems that manipulate us say, you only have value if you do the following. Right? You have to have money, you have to be famous, blah, blah, blah. I would assert that if you are famous, it's because you want to be famous. I don't think being really smart had necessarily anything to do with it. Maybe dedicated, it might have been hard work, it may have been challenging. Absolutely. Money's the same way. Our validation of ourselves cannot really be achieved externally. It's a losing game. When we give up our power and we look at other people to validate us, we have denied ourselves our authentic voice, our own process, and we have given up believing in us. And believing in us is what really, really is important. If I want to be a contribution to society, if I really want to be the kind of thing, make a difference, all that stuff, and I don't believe in myself, how is that going to work? I have to believe in myself and contribute from that sense, from that voice of love and approval from within so I can communicate that to the world. I have to discover that in my own process so that I can truly, from an experiential perspective, share that with other people. That's what makes it so beautiful then. Then I actually am, contributing. And even though I have been beaten down, and even though I may have had a difficult time, like ISIS, right? Like spring. Look at the COVID-19. When does it occur? Spring, renewal. Why? It's so interesting, right? It's because this reflection time is a time to renew and start again. It is never too late. I didn't get into this until I was in my 60s. I've been doing it since I was a teenager, but I never really owned it until I was 60. So if anything, not that I'm that special, but just as a person who's been through this, I know it's never too late to find our voice, to communicate our value, to tell the truth about who we are, to question our beliefs, to grow as a person. My greatest joy comes from when I have worked through an issue of my life. My greatest robust excitement comes from some life challenge that I met, not about other people's approval. That isn't really whatever. It's nice to get that. But then I'm dependent on it. Then I have to cater to it, and I have to work my way, and it's just so much work. Who needs it? And besides which, that's not really me. And then I'm kind of a tailored, sort of cookie cutter, sort of manufactured being. So, getting on to the end of the half hour here. So, thank you for watching me on Wellness Gala free series, Take Care of Yourself. Next week, we're going to be moving our time to 7:30 p.m. on Monday. So if you want to tune in, it's going to be on emotional balance. That'll be fun. And please visit wellnessgala.com for more information. And please, with all of this going on, please stay well. Wishing you the best. Bye-bye.